Hello, welcome to another episode of Epic Market Podcast. This is James Invest, and we have Baba Moise as well with us. And today we're going to quickly do like a market summary, a roundup of all the important stocks, what happened, how the candlesticks are for all of them. Yeah, over to you, Moise.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Starting right off the bat, if you can see my screen here with the S&P 500, I have the SPY ETF. And I'm looking at the 500 major stocks in S&P 500 here to give an idea about how the market has reacted closing into Friday. Last week, the market was facing some challenging worldwide economic events regarding Trump's tariffs. Technically, it's closed lowest, has the largest like red candle day in 2025. There's another one that happened here just on December 18, 2024. So the sentiment from last week has been a little bit of caution. There's uncertainty around worldwide economic pressures, both from the Trump administration, possibly comments made by the administration in other jurisdictions, like in Europe. But more importantly, the tech sector, which includes stocks like NVIDIA and Tesla, showing some signs of weakness. So just want to recap this quickly here. And from a technical standpoint, looking at the daily chart for the S&P 500, we can see a large red candle. And this just shows here a few case scenarios that I perceive it as. One is profit taking. Every time the S&P 500 or SPY has moved closer towards its highs, it's sold off. So we're seeing this again as of the close on Friday, February 21, 2025. I was anticipating that it has a chance to break the highs as long as it can clear the 612 level, which is the previous candle. Specifically, 611.68 was the level I was watching to see if it would break. Because from a technical standpoint, when the previous day candle looks like this, it's forming some form of small pullback. If it starts to break, it can break the high, all-time high here at 613.23. But when I don't see that price action, I am thinking that there's going to be some fear, profit taking, and amongst all the other economic events, it's possible that that's how the market behaved, and it closed fairly bearish. If you imagine this candle on a smaller time frame, like the 5-minute, pretty bearish, consistently selling off. Moving forward into QQQ, and this is the NASDAQ 100. I like to look at the NASDAQ because a large portion of the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 are those stocks like NVIDIA, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Google. Again, it was trying to break the high of the previous candle, didn't quite make it, and just sold off for the rest of the day. I typically don't see candles break through the 20 moving average unless it's become a possible occurrence in the past. And I've seen that, this 20 moving average is not being fully respected from a technical standpoint. The price action seems to dip below it, and this could follow through with further bearish price action. That's how I'm perceiving it. So again, the NASDAQ 100 also showing some bearish sentiment going into the Friday close. The stock that I really want to highlight here as well is Tesla. I have been watching Tesla on the daily chart because since it's had a monstrous move up past December, it hasn't been faring so well into the new year. As you can see, there was an opportunity for Tesla here to see if it was going to hold this 460 level, and I was watching it for that. But as I see price action start to not respect the moving averages, it becomes a common sentiment for other traders as well. So Tesla has not been doing so well going into 2025. It did have its earnings, but since then it's just been selling off. And from a technical standpoint, what I'm looking for is opportunities to short the market, because you can profit on long-term portfolios when the market is going up, or when an individual stock is going up and the value of your portfolio goes up. But what do you do when stocks are not moving up? And so traders and short-term position traders and day traders, they short the market. This is when you sell at a higher price and buy it at a lower price, and then the difference that you make is your profit. So this level here at Tesla was a critical level around 372, and once this broke, the price action has confirmed to be bearish. Now, I'm asking myself how much further this is going to go. Is it going to go around 325? It's very possible. One of the things that I focus on heavily when I'm analyzing a chart from a technical standpoint, and with the mindset that, hey, there's market events happening, there's concern, there's caution. Not to mention, Elon Musk is everywhere making lots of news about his viewpoints and who he supports from an international scale. There's a lot of quote unquote direct communication coming from the White House, and that's causing concern for a lot of countries around the world. I believe that has a part to play in this in some form, but not entirely. And the price action just shows me that if I look at this chart, what is it more likely to do after a red day going into this sort of pivot low? And in my view, I think that it has a chance to go further down. But if it holds this 325 level, I would see it as a major support level, and I would adjust my strategy on a short-term basis accordingly. Tesla is interesting because if I zoom out on the weekly chart, I was looking at this to see if it would hold the 20 moving average on the weekly chart around the 360 level, because I would be confirmed then that this is an opportunity to buy for a short-term portfolio that I would be managing. But because it broke this 20 moving average, my next area that I'm going to watch for is the 50 to see if it holds this level. And if these are weekly candles, I would just want you to imagine it this way. Sellers came in and drove price down, and then immediately buyers came back at the end of last week and brought it back up to around 350, 352-ish. It opened again last week, which is last Monday. It did go higher, and then it immediately started to sell off continuously toward the end of the week, and it closed lower. So when I see majority of this previous candle be engulfed by a red candle, I'm going to be concerned to go long. So I would not be surprised if this goes further down to the 50 moving average. And from there on, I would reevaluate to see what it's going to do. But right now, as of the first quarter so far of 2025, Tesla has been taking a hit, but that doesn't mean it's going to be like that. Because if you look at the past price action here, around the 300 level, there are buyers. There's green candles starting to appear, price action starts to improve. So that's the analysis I have from Tesla.
There's actually 2 points I need to mention on the fundamental side. So the Friday sell-off was majorly because of the news. I think it came out on Friday or Saturday that there was a recall of around 400,000 vehicles in North America because of power steering issues. That's one major news that came out last week. And another news that is coming out, and that's very interesting. You can see it at the bottom of the screen there. So all eyes on Austin, Texas, where Tesla will take on Waymo and Uber in an early robotaxi battle. So they did reveal the robotaxi in their last quarterly earnings, and Waymo and Uber already have tie-ups in place. So it'll be really tough. And I mean, from a fundamental standpoint, Tesla will be the new player on the block because Uber and Waymo already have set markets in various parts of US at least. Yeah, and it'll be very interesting to see how Tesla comes up with with Uber and Waymo.
Yeah, definitely. No, I appreciate you jumping in on that. Market events like that definitely do impact the price action because it's about how I react to the news. I don't generally take a bet based purely on news. I want to see the reaction of the news on the market. But it is showing here that that's positive sentiment. So we'll see how that plays out. But again, I would not be surprised if Tesla holds this 300 level and starts to make its way higher again. But that's something I rarely try to do, is try to predict the future. I just look at what's in front of me and analyze it on a short-term basis. But again, if I'm the type of person where I believe in Tesla long-term, I will probably wait to see where the right opportunity is to buy. And that's what most traders are doing, is looking at areas where they're not first to get into the market or add to their position, but they're buying on trends that are relatively confirmed. The other stock that I want to look at is NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA is a really, really tough one. In the past episodes, I have indicated this range between, around this 100 to 150 range. It's just been having a really tough time. And this is probably because of all the other AI news and DeepSeek and etc. But overall, I have particularly liked that NVIDIA is back. It's reclaimed the 200 moving average. It's reclaimed the 20 moving average. It's now pulling back. And I think next week is going to be really interesting to see if it holds this 130 to 135 level. This is quite a sell-off. This could be also due to the fact that there's some profit taking happening here, because look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 green candles followed by another gap up. I mean, stocks don't run forever and they need to take a break. So I'm interested to see NVIDIA, how it holds this 130 to 135 level. And this is a stock that I particularly like to zoom out for as well, because we're seeing a lot of short-term volatility. But if we look at this weekly chart, again, I really like that it's reclaimed the 20 moving average here as well. And if it can hold above this, I would be interested to see what other opportunities there are towards the upside going into the all-time highs. Because I think that a lot of the articles that I was reading and some of the recaps that I've seen around DeepSeek and there's Grok now as well, there's still going to be necessity for NVIDIA for the long term. And I think, James, you mentioned it as well, when the cost of certain technology or the demand for technology goes up, and the cost will need to adjust, and at the same time, more unique cases will start to appear. And I think the amount of GPUs that have been used for Grok as well, the new AI model that's sitting out there that's beat all the benchmarks, it just goes to show that NVIDIA has a place to stay for the long term. And I think that the price action also is showing me that, because claiming back the 130 level, bouncing off the 50 moving average, which is this gray line, I think it looks really nice for the long term. And I can even go to the monthly here to see what's happening here. Yeah, that's a big candle. Of course, we're not at the end of the month of February, but it looks pretty good here for NVIDIA, despite this difficult battle in the short term since I guess October to the beginning of the new year.
Yeah, since the previous earnings season, since the previous earnings, it's just been
yeah. Anytime I see a lot of this overlap, you see these overlapping bars, they look like sandwiches, or like, they're just not clearing each level clearly, and they come back. Overlap is generally where confusion is arising, right? There's not an agreement between buyers and sellers, and it's not very clear what's happening. Like if we look at this overlap versus something like here, there's overlap, but it starts to break away from the overlap, and it starts to break further away. So there's some sort of clear direction. And when the moving averages, I find, are just overlapping and going all over the place, kind of going sideways, that's a sign that there's a little bit of concern as to what the future of this company might be and what's the short term looking like. But the biggest indicator I have always used is the 200 moving average, because if you reclaim the 200 and you hold above that, that's a good sign for me. I think what we'll do is we'll end it off with one more. James, any specific one you want to take a look at as our last pick?
Can we do Meta?
Okay, let's do Meta. So this is the daily chart for Meta. I have been trading this from a day trading standpoint. It is incredibly volatile because there's large moves. Like if you imagine this candle right here, but from 620 up to 636 is no problem. And then you have a candle from 624 going to 661 in one day. So that's a lot of volatility and a lot of dollar price movement. Since its earnings, I guess it's just performed extremely well. It's clearly trending upwards. There's no doubt about it. Now, in the short term, because I'm day trading it, if it's below the 20 moving average, I'm looking at it between the 20 and the 50 now, going down to 660. If I'm looking at it from an investment standpoint, I would go a little bit further out and see that this is possibly a healthy pullback. But what I also see here is that there's a lot of green weekly candles just continuously going. I want to see this hold this 640 level if I'm looking to add for short term. But I also think that since it's been going up pretty strong for the past many months, I think since December 2022, I think it has to eventually take a break, because it's these moving averages that I'm particularly interested in. These moving averages to me are like magnets. So every time we get further away from them, it's likely to pull back. Mm-hmm. And as we get closer to these moving averages, if they hold, they're likely to bounce. So with those principles in mind, I want to see what the price action is for the month, the week. But this is just showing you that it also got dragged by the market. So overall, like, the week ended off fairly red. A lot of stocks were not proceeding higher. Tesla in particular was showing a lot of bearish price action, and most of the candles are larger than the other average candles on a daily time frame. So how next week is, it's either going to be a little bit of a rest, I think. It could also be the case that we have a continuation towards the downside, or it could very likely be a week where there's a little bit of confusion and we're seeing shorter volatility. But overall, I want to see how the economic events continue, because I think with the type of market that we're going to see and that we are starting to see is under Trump's administration is fairly volatile. And at the same time, if already into the new year, I'm seeing and hearing so many different concerning announcements and tariffs and all sorts of things that create global unrest to some extent. That's probably going to be the case for the next couple of quarters for me. And so I would day trade with a bit of caution, not expecting too much follow through. And if I'm investing, I would just probably focus on getting the best price. And the best price is what value I would place on the stock. And I love to buy closer to the 200 moving averages as a best case scenario. And if I'm really eager to enter the market and I feel like there's more upside potential, I typically look at the two other moving averages, which is the 20 and the 50. And just to give you an idea, if we look at August 2024, as it got closer to the 200 moving average, since then, S&P 500 or SPY has moved from 506 all the way to 613, versus if I look and buy right before it breaks the high of the day at 560, there's very likely a case that there could be another correction, because every time S&P 500 or SPY gets to this all-time highs, there's hesitation. So that's sort of a recap on how I'm approaching next week and how I think last week's bearish price action and bearish news did impact across the board, not just the S&P 500, but the NASDAQ 100 and the Dow Jones. So next week will be interesting to see if we see a little bit of a rest or a continuation to the downside. Yeah, that's a summary.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Epic Markets Podcast. This is James Invest.
And this is Babar Trades World. We really appreciate you tuning into another episode. Please make sure to subscribe.